lost my balance. And you know, that's when the colors started to change. Started to feel covered in chaos. And it was somewhere then. Don't look at me.
Yo, I'm was a little bit late this morning. Just still getting organised. How is everyone? Can you please let me know too how the audio is? Last week, some people were saying that it was a little bit low. So if I need to pump it up, let me know and I'll give it a bit more of a kick. Let me just move that because I'm not using it anyway. Stay out the way. Stay. So how are we all? Well, I finally got here. Let's just quickly go in to see who's in the chat, just to see who's here. Let's check this one out. DJ Reese, I think, says, I'm still leaning towards the A7R V. The Z8 has no mechanical shutter, great for video, and I just don't know how this plays out for stills. Well, look, it's not an issue anymore. I think, well, I'm not quite sure if it's DJ Reese or what, but it used to be an issue before when the sensors actually weren't fast enough, but nowadays you don't really need it. The A1 is a perfect example of how that works. It used to be an issue with flash, but nowadays it doesn't seem to be an issue at all. I think the future is going to be without the mechanical shutter. I mean, that's definitely the way that it's going to be. You know, you can see that. That was one of the advantages of a global shutter. Well, now they're not going to have to probably go down that line because the shutter sync speed now tends to be not a problem anymore with these latest sensors. In fact, my A9, I very rarely ever shoot with mechanical shutter unless I'm doing flash, and that's because with the A9 you have to. With the A1, etc., and the like the Z8 and Z9, you don't need to be using the mechanical shutter at all. In fact, it's probably a lot better because you're not giving your camera wear and tear. We all know some of the issues that we had with the A7 III with the shutter failing. well, you're not going to have that. Really, there's no moving parts if you're thinking about using the mechanical shutter. So I'd advise if you can, but only if your sensor is quick enough that you're not going to get banding. And that's the thing that, you know, these latest cameras, you're not really going to see banding with them at all. Let's keep going down just to have a look. So any more questions on that, I'll let you know. Also, said the focus AI tracking on the A7R V is a game changer. Yep, it certainly is so much better, that's for sure. It's finally summer on the Oregon coast. We didn't have a spring this year. Let me just check down too, because I just want to check to see if anyone's saying the audio is good. Your audio is as good as your intro was. Okay, thanks. So the audio looks like it's okay. Let me just keep coming back down here. Sorry that you didn't have a spring. Happy Clam, but at least now you're into summer. G'day, Panda. How are you, mate? I've been watching all of Panda's videos with him roaming around New York. Very cool. Rob said, it's roughly the same price as the A9, but in my humble opinion, it is so much more capable camera. Well, I'm going to take you through that because it does look like a really good release. Really good. I have heard David called a lot of things, but I've never called a firmware update. I love it. If I didn't have so much invested in Sony glass, I would have my pre-order for a Z8 already. Yeah, I probably may as well, actually. Looks like a really good camera, apart from there's no flip-out screen, which would put me off. Let me just stop that, because I don't know if I can, actually. It's the alarm system outside. Ziggy, my dog, is running outside. We are still waiting to see, you're talking about the A6000 here. While I'm waiting, it looks like I will be taking my A6000 underwater soon. I just took a dive trip for the fall to celebrate the 10th anniversary of my retirement. Ooh, sounds really nice. I've got to take this off because it just keeps going. It's either Ziggy's out there or it's Kerry doing some gardening. I'll take it off and then it shouldn't do it, I think. Let's have a look. Anyone know what time this is going to start? I know it was 20 minutes. I was 20 minutes late. Sorry, guys. The Happy Clam, in my humble opinion, there is no greater sign of disrespect than to be late. It sends a clear message that the other person's time is of no little or value. Sorry, mate. Oh, no. I saw a video by someone who I did workshop with that compared it to the Z9, which is basically Nikon's flagship, and he described it as essentially a Z9 without the integral vertical grip, and that's what it is. Yeah, the reason why I was late was because I have a cloud lifter. It's this little thing here. It gives me more volume on my microphone. So people last week complained that I didn't have enough volume. But I've been getting static. I just tried to put it on this morning. It was okay when I used it yesterday. But today, when I started up, I was getting an awful lot of static in the background. So I was trying to solve what that was. But I just disconnected it now and plugged it straight back in and it's okay. So I'll have to look at that when we finished. But yeah, maybe it could be the lead that's plugged into that cloud lifter, or perhaps the cloud lifter, which is a new one, is faulty. So I'll have to have a look at it. So sorry about being late. That's why I was. But yes, it is. It's basically a mini Z9 or Z9. Hello, David and everyone. At least it's Friday evening here in San Antonio, Texas. Waiting for a firmware update. That's why you said I was late. Oh, I love it. Hello, David. Nice day in Los Angeles. Good day for a Miller Lite. It is. I'm still drinking the white. I don't want to put it down somewhere. I'm going to spill it. Rick said the audio is perfect. That's great. David said beautiful video, beautiful model. Yes, I love Kerry. She's lovely. She hates doing it, but she did that there. That's for sure. Audio is as good as your intro was, so that's great. Barry also said good morning. Rick said warm in Brooklyn. What is it today? About 20, I think. 20 degrees Celsius today. We're nearly in winter here, so yeah, it is getting a bit cooler. But it's 20 today, so it's not too bad. Photo Miax here as well. How are you, buddy? I'm shooting with the Z8 right now, using HSS flash with the electronic shutter with no issues. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's like I said, there's no problem nowadays with the electronic shutter of these latest cameras. And like I said, I think that all the cameras are going to move down that way as the sensors get quicker. So it's not an issue anymore. And in fact, I would prefer a camera that had no shutter at all because, like I said, there's no wear and tear. Raymond said, I should probably have given how long I've had it, but the A7S III have an electronic shutter only option. Yes, it does. It has that. I don't use it as much on that because I'm not certain that the sensor is quick enough, but it does have it. I mostly just, like I said, I use it on the A9. Maybe just get an adapter Z to E, but but need to see how well the AF works. Well, I've heard that those adapters work very, very well. Ike may be able to chime in if he's done that with the adapters for the Nikon lenses on some of the Sony cameras, but I've heard that they do go very well. Tony the model has to go get her kid. She's going to bring him back when then we are going to continue with the shoot. So obviously pop over there, guys, if you want to pop and see Ike using that camera once we're finished here, of course. What's up, buddy? How are you, mate? Ike said she should be back in about an hour. Yeah, we'll be finished by then. Rick said, no need to apologise, Dave. Happy to spend Friday with you. Thanks, Rick. Doesn't electronic shutter reduce or change bokeh? Nah. No, I've never ever noticed a difference with the bokeh or the quality. No. I mean, others may chime in about that, but I've certainly never noticed a difference with shooting it. I think it does. I think it does give a fraction alter the bit rate, I think, on the A9, but I'm not sure about the A1 and the Z cameras, but I can't tell the difference, so I wouldn't even worry about it. Let's go to the first. Well, that's it. So I've caught up with all the chat. So let's go to the first story because I've got some interesting things to share today. So let's pop over. Now, I thought we'd start with this first. I'll show you a little bit about what this camera has. Then I'm going to have to show you how it compares to the Sony version. So we'll sort of check it again. You still have static in the audio. Yeah, I know, it's still there. I don't know where that's coming from. I'm using a noise gate to get rid of it. But yeah, it's there when I stop talking. I'll have to look at that another time. Like I said, last week I did rewire everything, and it's probably coming from a lead somewhere or something. So I'm going to have to see if I can check out where it's coming from. It may even be just the power in the room. Who knows? What else has he said there? Especially when you're quiet, just to let you know. Yeah, that's the noise gate. See, if I turn this noise gate off, that's the hum that I'm getting. So it's an electronic noise from somewhere. I don't know where it is. So I've put a noise gate on to try and stop it while I'm speaking. But it's also could be the fan. I've got the ATM next to me down on this side here, and there's a fan going on that, and it may be the fan coming in as well. I can't stop that fan, though, because it just turns on. There's nothing I can do about that. And just Quinton said, morning, David. Yeah, so let's get back to this anyway. So this is basically what the camera looks like. It's a really nice design, actually. I really like the look of it. It is, say, smaller than the Z9, but it does look pretty good if you're looking at it. I'm going to take you through some of the specs here, but then we'll look at it, how it compares to the ZV in a minute. The weight's 910 grams. It does have that 4-axis tilt motor. Let me just keep scrolling down. It's got CF Express Type B and SD card. It's got a HDMI. I think I'm not sure. Has it got the large HDMI? I'll have to look at that and see if I can find that in some of these pictures. It may not say. Oh, hopefully it has. USB-C for communication only. USB-C for charging and power supply. Advanced object detection, which is pretty amazing. It's very, very similar to what Sony has, in fact. this is just to sort of show you how the camera looks. Oh, it is a full size. Okay. I hate the micro HDMIs. I just hate them. That's one thing I hate with my A9. Once you start using, say, the latest, like the Sony A7S III, which has the the full HDMI, it's so much better. I always feel like I'm going to break that micro HDMI. I just hate it, and it never sits in firm enough. It's just not good. I like the dual card slots like that being shared. I think that's a good idea. Rather than having to force you to go for, say, both the same card. It's just that these are a lot easier to get. So, if you are sort of running short on memory cards where you can just stick your standard SD cards in, yes, it may affect performance, but at least you can still shoot. So I do like that. And if I was shooting with this, say, with RAW or whatever, I'd have RAW going onto your main card, and then you'd have JPEG going up onto your backup card. So, I don't mind these dual systems running like that, really. There is a battery grip and stuff like that you can put on here. You can sort of see there's another one that's up through there as well. The screen, I believe you can rotate it like this, but it doesn't rotate out, which is one of the only downsides that I have with this. DJ said it sounds like the preamp gain is too high, or yeah, it's the fan. I'll try turning it down a little bit. Let me just see. Then I'll try turning this up. No, it's still there. Testing 1 2. Test 1 2. Yeah. Well, it was even worse when I had the cloud lifter on, and that had the preamp down even less. So I'm not sure. Testing 1 2. I'll just bring that back down. Test 1 2 3 4. Yeah. So that's the only thing that I sort of don't like is the fact that you can't fold that back. But a lot of photographers like that. At least with this sort of system, though, you can hold the camera down really low to the ground if you wanted to shoot portrait that way, and and sort of have it like that. So that's terrific. Sort of shows the sort of size here that you're dealing with, the Z9, the Z8, and the D850. You can see it's very, very similar to the D850, a fraction smaller by the look of it. Anything else? Nope, that's about it. All right, so that's that part to it. But let's take a look at what they're saying here on Sony Alpha Rumors about the difference between the two of them. So what we've got here is they're saying it's the Sony A7R V versus the the Z8. I'm just saying, Tony said the sound is literally fine. We're not recording an album. So it's saying here that the Z8 has a much faster stack sensor. So it's got 20 frames per second as against 10 frames per second in RAW. Now, these are comparisons directly between these two cameras. Now, if size is important, you can obviously see that the Sony is way smaller. And that is one of the big advantages with the Sony camera is the size if you like to travel with smaller cameras. So that does make a difference. What else have we got? The Z8 has better video quality, 12-bit internal recording versus 10-bit 8K 422. It is nuts what they're giving you in this camera for the price, really. It really is. And I'll talk also about the Panasonic a little bit later today too, and we can sort of discuss that as well. What else have we got? It says the Z8 has better ergonomics and a top LCD screen. It has this little screen on the top of it that is really nice that you can sort of see all the specs. I don't know whether it showed it on that other... Yeah, it's here. So this is really good because it does give you all the information that you really need, actually, without even looking through the back of the camera, apart from exposure and stuff like that. But, it does give you all your information that you need on the top, and it's a really nice feature. I wish Sony would bring something like that in, but I suppose it can also be the body size is an issue with the Sonys. Like I said, it depends whether you'd like that really small body or whether you don't mind it being a little bit larger to get these sort of other features in it. It says it has 3 times better EVF resolution. The A7R still has the edge in terms of resolution, so it's slightly larger in terms of resolution. What What else have we got? The A7R, it has better autofocus, 200 more AF points. I still think, look, I do believe now that it's getting to the point where all of these new cameras, the difference in autofocus, I don't think is that much different anymore. It used to be, but the autofocus now is so good on all of them that I don't think it's really that much of a difference. Yes, you might say it has 200 extra focus points, but in real life, I don't think you're going to notice it. You may notice it, though, if you were, say, going from an A1 to, say, this, if you were, say, shooting a bird in flight or something like that, that could make a difference. Or if you wanted to get that, that perfect moment, it could still make a difference. But I really think that the autofocus now is good enough on all of these cameras. But the autofocus obviously is still going to be better on the A7R V. The A7R also has a mechanical shutter as well. No distortions risk. Like I said, though, I haven't seen distortions. I shoot with the A9 all the time, and I never, ever have an issue. And the latest sensors are going to be quicker than the A9. So, so that's that. So it looks like it's actually a really good camera. I mean, if you're after something that does 8K footage, that has great autofocus, it does 20 frames per second, it is high megapixel, I think it's a great release. I really do think it's a great release. And gee, we're in a great time for photography because, the price of this camera is nuts. It's saying here that it's hard to justify the $2,500 price gap. So if you wanted to get the Nikon, you're saving $2,500, which, you could buy a decent lens for. It's interesting, isn't it? So that's that. Let's go back. I noticed there's some on this. I had to bring this up again. It's talking about the firmware again still, and I noticed on Sony Alpha Rumors that they're saying Sony unexpected Sony moves. He's saying that people were contacted about... They contacted certain people. They certainly didn't contact me. I'll be definitely off their contact list. But they apparently have contacted certain people to ask what they think Sony should be doing. So perhaps they're finally maybe starting to listen. And it's just an interesting policy. And just to sort of talk about that at the moment, they did release a firmware update to the A1, but it's really nothing. It fixes an issue where the camera may not start when in mode dial is set to movie, and the NTSC PAL selector is set to PAL. Improves the operational stability of the camera. So this is a bug fix release. So they really haven't given anything, which is still a shame. So in other words, we're still not getting anything for the A1 or the A7S III at this stage. Now, I wanted to talk about this next part, though, because this is really interesting, because he also said that maybe Sony's starting to listen, so that's the first part of this. But then he goes on to discuss what the Digital Digest is saying, and he's defending Sony's firmware policy by basically saying that Sony has not promised to add features on their Sony A1 or any other camera. So we should stop asking for things that Sony didn't say or they would deliver. He says it's perfectly normal in the digital industry not to add new features via software. Well, I don't know where he gets that from, because I totally disagree with that. You're even getting cars now that are having firmware updates. If you get the latest cars, they will get firmware updates, particularly the battery ones, the ones that run on battery, will be getting firmware updates probably quite often. So it's interesting. So that part's changing. You look at the iPhone, you look at Fuji, you look at Panasonic, you look at all these other companies, they're offering firmware updates. So I disagree with what he's saying about that. And also, it comes down here, it says, of course, the A1 is still a superb camera. No one is saying it's not, and I'm not saying that either. There are competitors out there like Fuji and Nikon that indeed are going the opposite way and do add new features via firmware update that they didn't anticipate or promise ahead of their camera launch. So the problem is that customers will think twice in future. Now, this is what I said was the problem. So it also says that they'll be thinking they should buy a Z8 or, or go for a Sony or a Fuji, knowing that Nikon and the Fuji will get future updates. And this is the important issue here, is that from a customer perspective, like I said, I'll stick to it. I'm not going to buy another premier camera again or a flagship camera. I will wait for the next version down that I know will have almost the same features for much, much less of a price. I mean, much less of a price. So this is the problem that they're facing with. Now, the other interesting thing as well is it doesn't stop people from upgrading, and that's one of the important things that Sony have to understand here, is that I get constant upgrades on my iPhone, and I still always buy the new iPhone when it comes out, because there's still always features in that I would want to have. So even though they're upgrading and giving extra features through firmware, I'm still buying that latest camera when it's released, or iPhone. So I think that adding firmware updates is not going to stop people from going to the next greatest thing. It just basically gives the customers something back to keep them happy. And customer satisfaction is one of the most important things. I always give extra with my wedding work, etc. I'll always give them extra retouched images or a slideshow or something like that. And you know what? It gives the client, the customer, a really nice feeling. They'll then recommend you to other people and things like that. But see, this is what these companies have to understand. Why did that come up? It's come up with this is what these other companies have to understand, is that the customer is very, very important, and word of mouth, etc., is also very, very important. So Sony needs to be very careful here that they don't basically, look after the customer and keep the customer happy. That's why I totally disagree with the Digital Digest. I'm not saying he's a Sony shill or whatever, but I do know that all of these people get Sony, the releases and stuff like that sent to them before they're released. So they're not going to have a go at Sony. Remember, I'm completely independent, so I'm going to say it as it is. A lot of the people that you'll see on YouTube won't. And that's one of the big differences. Another thing too here that I'd like to sort of show you is this was a great release. If you haven't watched some of these videos down below, I'll leave all these links below. Gerald Dunn did a video about the Panasonic S5 IIX the other day, and it's an incredible camera, actually. So this is probably the direct competitor to the Sony A7S III. But the A7S III is priced at $1,300 more. So again, you're paying a premium on the Sony line of things. And this is why I'm saying it's important for them to be giving you things to stop people from moving over, because it's critical. And they're saying here that Panasonic is really throwing in all their best tech at a stunningly affordable price, probably an extreme attempt to save their L-mount future. Because from what I've heard from large store owners, their cameras don't really sell as well compared to the bigger guys. And that's interesting because the camera itself is excellent. If you wanted a video camera, particularly, what this thing will do is awesome. I'll leave this links down below because you can have a look at what these reviews sort of say, but it really does look like it's a great camera. And again, Panasonic are going to be updating this constantly, so you're going to be getting all new features and everything. I will come back to the questions in a few minutes, guys, because we'll move over to that. Another thing too is this looks like a great release from Sony. I wish we could get these in Australia, but they don't sell them here. The new Xperia 1 has to cater for the photo and video enthusiasts. So this is the latest release that's coming there together. Now, I believe the sensor is bigger on this on this Sony camera. What else it says? It supports a 6.5-inch OLED with a 21.9 aspect ratio, 120 hertz refresh rate, which is very nice. It gives you 12 gigabytes of RAM and 56 gigabytes of storage, but you can expand that to 1 terabyte via a micro SD card slot. It runs on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset. But it's more the sensor. It's a 52 megapixel wide camera. So it's got that's a 24 millimeter equivalent, which is nice. It's quite a nice wide angle there. Using a 1 1.3-inch image sensor. Though Sony has yet to specify exactly what the sensor is. There's an f1.9 aperture with both electronic and optical image stabilization. It's got pixel binning, can kick in to make pixels larger for light gathering, and they're just showing some sort of results. But the results I've seen online look like it's pretty good. You can also use this as a monitor too, which is one of the great things about this for your Sony cameras. So, it really, really is a nice looking phone. And if you're after really good quality, it's great. Sony is also quipped that it wouldn't be utilizing AI to fake an image. We will not add moons or clips. Yeah, well, a lot of that stuff is a bit tacky, but this night mode is meant to be really, really good as well. It can almost see things that aren't there. These are just some of the images. It's getting to the point where, honestly, if you were traveling, if you don't need a really long lens, boy, the results you're getting from these cameras now is crazy. I mean, I'm sure the new iPhone that comes out shortly, there's rumors that that's going to have a telescopic lens in it. It is getting to the point where, I'd almost consider taking this and not taking other cameras. It's interesting. This will also apply to the 12 megapixel telephoto lens. It's an 18 to 125 millimeter equivalent. I'm just trying to see what else is there. Video recording. It's got S-Cinetone built in, which is really nice. It's got 6 color LUTs. What else is it saying? And this is where you can see it being used as a monitor for your camera as well. So I think it's fantastic. Like I said, excuse me, we can't get that here, which is unfortunate. I don't know why they dumped it here in Australia. It must have been selling. You've also got multiple display options like waveforms. The other thing too with the Z8, which I forgot to mention actually, was that it has waveforms. I wish Sony would bring that in. It's such a great feature. I wish they'd bring that in on their normal cameras. What else has it got? Anyway, it's going to be $1,400. So that'll be United States dollars, and it's available on July the 28th. Boy, it looks like a really good phone. I'm jealous. So, yeah, we can't get that. So let's go over to the chat, and let's see what you guys are saying. Now, let me go back to where we were. Where were we? John said, Randall said, the buttons also light up. Yeah, well, that's also quite a nice thing too if you're working with low light and stuff. That can be a great feature, actually. Looks like a great camera, certainly an alternative for Sony and Canon users. Is there a weight comparison between the two? No, I don't think there was. You could check the weight, though, because does it say it? There you go. It says here that it's 910 grams. So you could check what it weighs as compared to the Sony, because this is 910 grams. If someone wants to have a look at that in the chat and put it in, it'll be good. G'day, mate. How you going? Good to see you here. I'm DeBrown. An LCD screen on the top of the camera used to be pretty much standard. I know it did. I really missed that. I really did like that. Fuji has the X-H2 that was 8K also. I've just been sent the new Fuji lens from Tamron, the one that's just been announced. So I'll be doing a review of that in the next day or so. So I've got that. I think it's a wide angle zoom, I think. I can't remember. I haven't even opened the box yet, but it's the latest one for Fuji that's out there. So stay tuned for that. What you're saying there, Fuji has the X-H2 that also has 8K, yep. Saw Jared Poland's video. His Z8 didn't focus too well, kept jumping between subjects, may need more firmware tweaks. Yeah, and it could be a pre-release version as well. So, I wouldn't take too much on that being pre-release. Hi, Dave. How could the new A9 improve on this camera? It seems as though they are all perfect. The best camera is just the one that fits one's particular need. It's hard, Rick, isn't it? Like, I suppose the new A9 could have definitely a faster shutter. I mean, it could get rid of, like I said, I think it probably will get rid of the mechanical shutter completely. So the sensor will maybe a little bit faster. It could definitely improve a little bit on the video side, but I'm not sure they're going to put too much on the video side, because then it would take it away from the A1 and things like that. So I think probably what you're going to find is you may get more frames per second, obviously. They might up the resolution a little bit. So, it may be up around the 30 or 40-ish, around that area. They may get, say, up to 30-odd frames per second instead of your 20. So things like that, may improve it. Or it could go even higher than that. Who knows? It could get up to, 40, 50. It depends. I mean, it's possible. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. So I think you'll find the new A9 is definitely going to be a faster sensor. Mechanical shutter probably will be gone. You'll have, obviously, the better flash sync speeds that will be built into that. Probably, hopefully, the better rear screen and the EVF, seeing it is, it is going to be an expensive camera, and higher mega resolution, and also a faster shutter, faster frames per second, I think would be what you'd sort of see. Do you think the future A7 will have a stack sensor and having the same DNA? Maybe, yeah, probably will. I think they'll all go that way. Remember, it does all flow down, so I think you'll probably find that is going to be the case. It's still going to take a little bit of time to do that, though. It also depends on what the competition brings out too, and that's why competition is so good, because it really does force people to, or the companies to give better releases or sooner than what they would. So, yeah, I think that's important as well. Hi, folks. Any word when the Sony A9 III release date? Well, I'm still thinking it's going to be fairly soon. I mean, we don't know whether the next release is going to be the A6 7000 release or whatever. A6 700 or whatever it's going to be. That could be the next release. It's either going to be the A9 or that, I think, is going to be probably the next releases that come out. So I would think it's probably not going to be too long, I would think. Does Sony do firmware updates for their Xperia phones? Well, people would have to chime in, because I'm not sure. I would think that they would. It'd be crazy if they didn't. The Sony A7R is 723, so it's quite a lot lighter, yeah. So it is a lot lighter. But you can see from when I showed that comparison between the Z8 and also the Sony, it was much smaller. I mean, it is way smaller if you were looking at the sizes on that. Did it show? Yeah, it shows it there. So, if you look at that, you can see it's quite a bit smaller. Yeah, I mean, quite a bit smaller. So you would expect it to be lighter in that respect. Some people still like the fraction larger bodies, because if you're shooting with longer lenses, it does balance a bit nicer. I mean, that is the issue with the smaller lens bodies. They do have a balance issue a little bit when you're holding them. Whereas if it's got a bigger body and you've got something to hold on to there, it sort of does fit a little bit better in that regard. So yeah, it's I think it can be important if you're shooting wildlife and things like that, or sports where you need that extra long range. That's why also they love battery grips and stuff like that, because they really do like to have that big camera body to hold on to. Panda just said, you all need to say hi to me now as well. I demand friends. So that's about it. Is there any other questions before we finish for the day? I'm going to go and get a coffee, see if I can sort this audio problem out. That's that little bit of humming that I'm getting. Leanna, g'day, Leanna said, what's she saying? Hi, David, great show. Keep giving them hell. I always do. I won't give up until they look after what I believe is the Sony A9. The A1 users and the A7S III particularly, but any of their cameras, they should give some upgrades. I still can't understand why they never gave the color, focus to the A7 III and stuff. I mean, it's just little things like that you can't tell me changing the color of a focus little icon would, have an issue. I just don't believe it. I just don't think they want to give it to us. Well, they've got to change their thinking. That's for sure. So, yeah, thank you, Leanna, for saying that. Now, if you have any questions, leave them down below. And I do always read the questions. Sometimes I just put a love heart or something like that. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Like I said, I am unsponsored as well. So please do that. Subscribe. Apart from that, everyone, I'm just looking at Pandas. I'm coming back to Sony, everyone. Are you, Panda? You're leaving Canon. It said David was just watching my live stream. I was watching a little bit earlier. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, stay tuned. There will be another video coming up with the Fuji lens. Also, I've got another amazing light, which I think is incredible. I'm going to be reviewing that in the next few days. So stay tuned for that review as well. I will be back the same time next week, hopefully on time. But I'll see if I can solve this audio problem sometime this afternoon. See if I can get that as well. So apart from that, everyone, I'll see you all next week. Bye for now, everyone.
If you're looking for some crazy, I'll tell you everybody's standing in a line for the water slide. You can come on over, we can take the roller coaster. You know everybody's looking for a ride in the water slide. Surfing on a wave of good feelings. Well, it's just another Friday.